Well, hello, dads. Welcome again to the Dad Nation podcast. Just excited to be with you again. This podcast is an extension of a ministry called Dad Camp, and we are on mission to build stronger fathers who build stronger families. We have a dream to see a world where every family has a great dad, and for I guess 3-4 years now, we've been doing this monthly podcast just as another way to just encourage dads. And so you don't have to be a Dad Camp dad to be a part of this podcast community. And so share this with your friends, share this with other dads. It's just a source of encouragement. I know this is probably a couple of years ago, and I've shared this before at Dad Camp events, but we were a part of a podcast ranking of 250 family podcasts in the U.S., and so I just checked it out and saw there were only 3 of those 250 that were about being a dad and encouraging dads. And so there's not a lot out there. So share this with your community of guys as a way to just encourage them in the world of being the best dads that they can be, because we need to get our dads back. And so that's what we're trying to do here. I am in studio again without my co-host Matt, but I'm excited to share with you a guest that we're going back to back with Dr. Dave Currie, my cousin again. And so we recorded this. You're going to notice if you watch the podcast, you're going to say, hey, Jason's wearing the same clothes as he was last episode. And that's because we just went back to back on these recordings, and Dave's here with us here in Indiana for a little over a week. And so we're just taking advantage of his wisdom and his time, and thought, we've got a couple of different topics we want to talk about. And so that's the reason for that. But I'll just quickly introduce Dave to you again. If you got to go back and watch the first of our discussions with Dave, where we explored the issue of what happens when you find your kid watching porn, and we just kind of talked about that subject in a little more general terms, but we've never explored that before, and it was super, super helpful. So go back there, and I also introduced Dave and had him share a few Canada stories. So go check those out as well. But Dave has just been a part of, man, how many years in ministry?
48 now.
48 years of ministry, of wisdom, of what his ministry now is called Doing Family Right. And I would say that's been his life. Watching him, knowing him, being a part of my family, he and his wife Donalyn have done family right. And so it's not just an organization name, it's something they've lived by, and now they've been able to they're just passing that on. And we're so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for just his friendship and his mentorship in my life and Bridget's life, and just helping us navigate through seasons and navigate, how to do our family right and do ministry right, and just following in his footsteps. He's one of those people that, you have spiritual markers in your life, spiritual moments, people that have been huge in the advancement of your faith, or the advancement of just living out your giftedness and passions. And Dave and Donalyn are certainly in the center of that for Bridget and I. So just thankful to have you here, Dave. And if you didn't hear, like I said, the last episode, go back and check that out. But it's good to have you in another conversation here on the podcast.
It's so good to be back, and thrilled to be sharing some of our life lessons.
So before we jump in, there's always the question of the day that we love to do. And last month, I asked him a few Canada questions, and he's a friend of a very special Canadian in the world of sports and hockey and all things there. And he that was out of a question of your favorite thing about Canada, and you said it was hockey. And then we just kind of went down a trail there.
Yeah.
You are always, I'm always loving someone in your family. You are an adventurous family.
Yes.
And I've always enjoy seeing on Facebook or something, one of your families on there's another Currie adventure. And, I think that starts because of the culture that you created. You're still an adventurer yourself. Mm-hmm. And so question of the day, Dave, is like, what's name one of your coolest adventures that you've ever got to do, either just on your own with Donalyn or with your family, something like that.
Yeah, first thing come to mind is for one of my birthdays, my family had heard that I wanted to get to the top of Mount Baker because where my house is situated, we can see
it.
Amazing Mount Baker just across in Washington State. We live in British Columbia. And I would love to have thought that I was on Mount Baker looking back at my house, right? And so they...
How tall is Mount Baker?
Just shy of 11,000 feet. So this is not just a hike.
No.
This is we're roped together. We got crampons. We got ice axes and everything. It's traversing. It's not climbing. So it's a serious hike. At some point, it's about 45 degrees. So it's a serious.
Wow. Yeah.
Serious. The last. It's called the Roman Wall. The last 800 meters is serious.
How long of a hike was this?
Well,
climb.
You actually go up to about 5,500 feet the night before in camp.
Okay.
And then you do the final ascent early the next morning before it starts melting too much so that the ice doesn't start to shift. And, of course, slides or crevices and different things. And so you try to get up there early in the morning and start coming down just around noon or 1 o'clock. And so the highlight was with 3 of my kids and myself and the guide, we got to the top of Mount Baker. And so that was one of our best adventures, and done all kinds of crazy things like bungee jumping with my kids and crazy rapids, with kayaks and stuff.
Mount Baker is look it up. It's every time I go to where Dave is from, that's my hope, but it's going to be a sunny day because it is majestic. Let's just say that. It's one of my favorite, just like, let me just sit here and stare at Mount Baker. Yeah. That takes me back. When we lived in Colorado for a few years, they have 54 peaks that are above 14,000 feet in Colorado.
Wow.
And so there's this kind of little thing called like the 14er club, so when you climb one of these 14ers, at the top there's always a little book and you sign it, and and sometimes sort of people are like, I'm going to climb all 54 of the 14ers, and most of them are hikeable with there's definitely some different levels of difficulty. I think there are a few, though, that get pretty technical. So right. Unless you have the technical training or ability, you're not going to get all 54. But I thought, in my young, early married days, and we moved there, and I thought we're going to live there for a while. We only ended up being there for 3 years. But I've always, grown up in BC like you, Dave. It was always like I loved hiking and being out there, and wasn't something my dad was ever interested in. But I had some friends that we loved that. So I always thought I'm gonna get as many of these as I can. But what I found, did you ever struggle with altitude sickness? Because it either affects you or doesn't. I heard it's got nothing to do with your training or your shape. It's just a thing. But
the altitude didn't bother me. What was different? The air was thinner.
Sure.
So you breathe deeper and you have to work to get air. Of course, you're also tired because it's like you're going up quite a few flights of stairs, right? So you are getting tired and you're sucking air when air is thinner.
Yep.
But it didn't make, none of us got dizzy or had the sickness that you're talking about.
It is no fun. So I found out quickly that is something that I would get, and just violent headache, like wicked headache, and then nausea, and you're throwing up like crazy. And I'm like, okay, is this really fun?
Yeah.
So I think I ended up doing 7 or 8 of them.
Wow.
Before we moved, but the very first one was Long's Peak, which is in Rocky Mountain National Park, kind of one of the more famous ones because of where it is. They say, I think the success rate of it is 30%. Make it, 70% don't. I made it, but I probably shouldn't have made it. On the way down, the altitude sickness hit me actually on the way down. I got really disoriented to the point where not hallucinations, but close. And even to the point of where I was trying to convince my guys that were with me to just, you guys go on ahead, I'll be fine. I'm just going to lay up here for a while. And it was like, they knew what was going on, and they're like, no, you got to get this guy down quick. Yeah. And so, I remember them, the weather got weird at some points. We got kind of wet. So they were like, I remember them like stripping me down pretty much and putting new clothes on me. And I didn't know like what was happening. And, hey, but I made it. But so after that, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So I did easier 14ers that I wasn't up as high as, it didn't take as long to be above the point where you get sick. I could get down quicker, but still would get the headaches and then my last one was with my son. And I thought, he was 15, 6, he wasn't driving yet. So 15, I think Cole was. And I thought, I'm going to take him on my first one, our first 14er, have him go. That was the point, Dave, when I realized, I think my son's got me. I thought, to this point, I'm like, I still got him. I can take him and pretty much stuff. But he just kicked my tail going up that hike that day. And I was like, it's numb. And then we felt fine at the top, felt great. Coming down, we're doing good. And then about halfway down, it hit me. And I remember we got in the car and I felt so bad. And we got about 3 miles down the road and I just stopped, and I lost my cookies and then I was in bed the rest of the day with this just debilitating headache. But anyway, I kind of hijacked your story there. That just brought me back to some climbing moments.
Well, that particular day that we did summit Mount Baker, we woke up the morning. Our guide said we'll wake up at 4:30 and we'll check the weather at 5. And we actually started with headlamps because you got to go. And it was a real nasty storm. And at the elevation that we were at, it was pounding rain. And he said, well, let's just let it sit for a half hour. We'll get up at 5 and see what it's like. And so the farther up you go, it goes from rain to snow, right? Slush, then to snow and all. And so it was, and this is now American talk, but we were running 55 mile an hour winds with freezing rain. That was our climate condition to climb.
And your guide was saying, keep going.
Well, here's the deal. At 5,500 feet where we camped, there was about 60 climbers there. And we were the only group that pushed through and kept going. We were the only group that summited that day. And the guide later told us that was the worst conditions I've ever guided people through. But it was...
Was that the wise choice, Dave?
It was a great choice. Because we're, as they say, shut up and do it. The line I used to say to the kids in the sports, if it's not broken or bleeding, quit whining. And so, we kind of have that mentality that, it was a good event. And we had the sun break later, and it was, we pushed through. We were wind burned. From the wind blowing so hard, all of our faces were red, and just like you see.
So not only did you summit, this was a good finish to the story. You summited on a day when your guide said, this was the most difficult conditions I've ever guided someone through.
That's right.
Little extra notch in the belt there.
Yeah. It was good, though.
Man, good stuff. So we're going to talk today about marriage for the most part, a little bit, and about some specific fatherhood stuff. But as we get into that, why are you so passionate about family ministry? What is said, I'm going to give my life to this, my energy. And if you guys don't know Dave, he's a passionate guy. Mm-hmm. And, what's driving that for you?
Well, again, I believe that the non-negotiable difference that Jesus makes, rolled out in every area of your life, changes everything. And so, and yet I've seen life long enough that so much of our lives are either a derivative of our family of origin or a response to our current family situation. And to do marriage right, to do parenting right, to do family right, which is, of course, not Currie's way, it's God's way.
Yep.
Like doing family right is God's way. Let's get it straight. I got some ideas, but they're all a derivative of what God would want for us, right?
Right.
And so the passion is guiding people to God's plan for marriage and family as best I can. And that's kind of what drives me, which starts, of course, with surrendering your life to Him, giving your life to Him, now giving your marriage to Him, giving your parenting to Him, giving your family to Him, and just letting Him guide you. So the desire is, our mission statement for Doing Family Right is helping you with your most important relationships: marriage, family, and God. That's what we do.
So, you just celebrated a pretty big milestone in marriage, which is why I wanted to actually talk about that, because it's not often you get to sit with someone that celebrates 50 years of marriage. So you've done something right there. And you have a lot to celebrate there. And so we want you to. I wanted you to like tell us about, like the wins of that and just the celebration of that. And why would you say to these dads that are listening, even if, again, we're not just highlighting you guys that are married, but there's something to be heard here if you're single or if you've gone through divorce. But tell us, about that.
Well, even the guys that have gone through a divorce will know that there's a better way to do it. Because they would personally know that they're going to do some things different. And that's, we have this beautiful privilege of seeing God anchor our marriage. Even from the time that we started dating, we used to send our notes back to each other while we were still single. And at the end, besides love Donalyn or love Dave, we would put a heart with a 3 in it. And it meant that it was Donalyn, Dave, and Jesus right from the start. We just wanted to be a heart with a 3, with 3 in the relationship right from the start. And, I would say that that's been our target and our goal, that he is an equal partner to this, maybe the leading partner in this. And we certainly haven't done it perfectly because, I am certainly selfish and carnal. And need to continue to surrender to the Lord to be the man He wants me to be. But, Jesus makes the non-negotiable difference. And we celebrate His faithfulness in our lives when we hit 50 years marriage, because if it wasn't for Him, we likely wouldn't be together. We're left on our own devices, selfishness and, hurdles and struggles from the past, hurts that we bring from family of origin. They can capsize any relationship. And we need to continue to surrender our day-to-day and our inner struggles to the Lord. And, I'm very, very grateful for my relationship with Donalyn. Even though I'm a foot taller than her, I married over my head.
Yes, you did. I agree. As did I. So I heard you say something this week. Let's camp out here and let you lead us from here. You've seen a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys out there that are great dads, but not the best husbands. But you've rarely seen a great husband that's not a great dad. Yeah. Talk about that. Yeah,
it's. I've written about that. It talks about being a great spouse first and foremost, and this would be the argument that being a parent is a lot easier than being a partner, because when a child is born into your life, they're dependent on you, they adore you, they look up to you, you control everything about them, especially for the first number of years, and that relationship is almost undeniably, if you do a reasonable job, undeniably they look up to you and they listen to you, and you have a lot of sense of control. And that's the opposite of marriage. In marriage, you have to collaborate. You have to agree on things. You have to work through issues. Your spouse isn't dependent on you. Your spouse isn't obedient to you. Your spouse is a mind of their own. And without a doubt, the harder relationship is the marital one over the parenting one. And what happens is, as the kids start coming along, we start to over-focus on the kids to the dismay of the marital relationship. And a matter of fact, and I'm not trashing women in any regard, because men have their vices too, but many women are so thrilled with the motherhood experience that they go, all in on hyper, I'm going to be the best mother in the world, and so attentive that the guy is instantly relegated to second or third place behind the new baby and all. And which, of course, we know that there is needs in the first 6 months to a year where the baby has to be fed and changed, and there is a hypervigilance and a hyper focus there. But when it starts to carry on past that, where it's all about the kid and all about this beautiful relationship because this child adores me and they love me and I love loving them, I love being loved by them, and it's really harder with you, so I'll let that go. And so sadly, marriages slides to second place, and men are just as guilty often with their baby called their career, with their work, and so they the wives are work widows, as it were. They've been almost there's an affair at work, as it were, and so committed to work that the family doesn't have much time. They're not good at parenting. They may not even be having dates anymore. Might have no time with their spouse alone. And so whether it's kids that are over distracting or work that can be over distracting, marriage is relegated to second, third, or fourth place, or not even a recognizable priority. And when I first said this statement, my son and two of his friends were taking their wives on a cruise, and my wife and I were going to do some babysitting with the grandkids. Okay. Well, my son and his wife and their friends took off, the six, of them, three couples, and they were standing at the door, and my wife was getting the last minute instructions from Currie and Brock, and it was just two of his wonderful friends who I just love these men, and four of us were standing there, and just flashed in my head, and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I say something?" It was obvious that I had something in mind, and from this casual chit chat at the door while we're waiting, and they were going to jump in the car and go to the airport, to I want to say something to you, and I congratulated them on going away with their spouse to focus on a rebuild of their marriage. I really congratulated that, because at the time it just dawned on me. I've rarely seen a great husband who's not also a great dad. But I've seen a whole bunch of wonderful dads who are lousy husbands. Matter of fact, I've even had women who are divorcing their husband, but have said, well, I'll give him credit. He's really a good dad.
Yep. Heard that a lot.
Yeah. So the deal is, the harder relationship is the marriage.
Yep.
It's not the parenting. It's the marriage is the harder one. But I would argue that it is so critical for especially men to prioritize their marriage over their work, over the kids. Because as the kids get older, I become super coach. You did too. I coached all my kids in many sports, and sometimes with some of the hockey, crazy Canadians that we are, we're running 20 to 25 hours a week in hockey practices, driving games.
Yeah,
it's a lot of time.
Yep.
And you relegate. Well, we can maybe have a date every 3 weeks for a couple hours with your wife, and that's how we're supposed to kind of keep this going. Well, it really gets messed up, but what I've seen, Jason, is when men prioritize their marriage and keep the marriage strong, it gives the kids a security, a stability, and a sense of strength that nothing else brings them.
Yep.
By default, mom and dad are strong, I'm secure. Because the opposite, if mom and dad are shaky, they're not stable, they're not secure, and they're not strong. They are struggling. And so one of the famous J. Ellen Peterson, who's passed away now, but a wonderful Christian family educator. Donald and I didn't even have our first kids when I heard him say this live. But J. Ellen Peterson said, the greatest gift you can give your kids is to love your spouse. And I've repeated that for years.
Mm-hmm. Heard you say it many times.
Yeah, and so for me to love Donald Lynn well, for me to keep working it out, for me to get through the bumps, for me to work through the frustrations, for me to continue to build fun times and keep dating. For me to do that gives Jody, Brock, Keldy, and Mitch, even as little kids, a sense of mommy and daddy are happy and a fun story. Donna and I were going to go out on a date, and Jody was likely about 11 at the time. She was the oldest. And Jody was whining because she wanted to go out with us too. Why can't I come? Why can't we come? Right? And I said, well, you know how you're good friends with Andrea? And she said, yeah. And you know how you like to have sleepovers or spend time with Andrea because she's your best friend? Oh, yeah. Well, Dad and Mama want to keep being best friends, and sometimes we need some time alone to do that. So would it be okay if Mom and Daddy went out tonight so we could keep being best friends? And a light went on in this 11-year-old. She got this big grin on her face, and she says, Daddy, you go out with Mommy because I want you to keep being best friends. Because she already felt the stress between us when it wasn't there. Because we weren't perfect. We had our issues.
Yep.
And, you don't always keep it perfectly hidden, as they say, And so I really work to put your spouse first.
So the proof in the pudding is they just celebrated 50 years. So you've done that. More proof in the pudding is the family that follows you and is the generation behind the kids that you've raised. And if you're watching this, and our lights are just going out on here, and so I'm not sure why, but we'll just keep going. Yeah. I think we're okay. Yeah. But you've got these 4 incredible kids who have married 4 incredible people that you now have 13 grandkids. And you see a family that truly enjoys being together.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're saying here is by being a great spouse first to Donalyn, has in turn allowed both you and her to be a great dad and a great mom to the 4 kids that you raised, and in turn great grandparents to the point where now you have a family that's like choosing to be with you even when they no longer have to. Right. Because they love being around you. They love being a family together. They love each other. And honestly, I think that is the hope of all of us as dads is that. It's like, when I'm, raising my family and with Bridget and our marriage, I'm like, who are we looking to, one step ahead of us that we can because that's what we want. And so who is doing that? Who is, who can we see it's living it out? And so, and that's who we kind of gravitate towards, or that's who we want to get advice from, and that's who we want to talk to. And last year, as part of our dad camp kind of season, if the guys if you've listened, then you went and you attended, one of the things we were challenged by was like, what is your it? If you're as a dad and as a mom, as a married couple, like what is your parenting goal? What is the if we could get to this place as parents, like this would be like for us, this would feel like we did it. We did this thing right. We did it. Yeah. And the one of the I guess the examples that was given in the book that we used was that their goal was that they would get to a point in life when their kids, when they were adults and could choose for themselves, would still choose to be with them, which meant to them, like that means that our relationship is healthy. Then that means when we have relationship, we have influence, because without relationship, there's no influence. And ultimately, as parents, even when our kids are gone, we still want to be in a position to influence them and love them and guide them and coach them and so this particular, they got there, but this is what I see in you guys. This is what I see, like, man. And honestly, I'll get emotional, but like, I'm starting to experience that with my own. Yes. Because Bridget and I are now starting the empty nester stage of life, and we got these 3 kids that they still want to be around us. They still call us. Bridget and the girls talk almost every single day. Those girls are calling their mom, and I get a chance to just watch that and see the beauty of that relationship. And it's a friendship now. Like now we're in like this friendship season, and And, you know, Cole and I are like, you know, we're still like, we do stuff together. We actually meet together for discipleship together. Like, he chooses that. Like, yesterday you know, you and I, and like, we went and they traveled with us to go spend a day together. Like, and it's just like, this is what we always wanted. Like, someday, like, we're in the fruit of that, and we're so thankful for that. And so I think it's safe to say, you know, I just got announced, I'm going to be a grandpa here soon. And so,
wow, congratulations.
But to know that, like, I'm in the relationship that I'm in, that this is like, that's going to be an everyday part of our lives is these grandkids, because they're in this healthy relationship. And so just celebrating 50 years, I say that all to say, just celebrating 50 years of marriage, having the family that you have and the blessing that is, what would you say to the dads listening? Man, if, you know, as a dad, you know, first, you know, we talked about the first thing, be a great spouse first and foremost. Yeah. That was what the big idea of what we're talking about today.
Right.
As a dad, beyond that, if I do that first, but what are some things that you did to, like, man, as a dad to your kids, you know, throughout even when they're young, to when they're preteen, to when they're teen, to when they're adults, like, just a few things to just say, encourage, like, man, guys, don't miss this.
Yeah. So I think one of the key things is intentionality.
Okay.
You whether it's work, plans to grow a company, or just be successful at a job, whatever, you do a lot of things pretty intentional. You show up regularly, and you do what you need to do, and you try to excel, and I think that same level of intensity and intentionality needs to be applied to marriage, and needs to be applied to your parenting. And so even early, my wife and I talked and decided that there were 3 characteristics that we wanted in our kids. All right, and maybe by now you pick up. Obviously, one was the difference Jesus makes.
Yep.
We wanted them to embrace faith, so that was to us the obvious starting point. But after that, there was 2 words that we chose.
Okay,
that our kids would be active.
Okay.
In other words, they're not going to sit on the sidelines or, I don't want to do that, I'm not very good at that. I mean, we had no time for that. We want you to get involved. If it's get involved playing, get involved helping. Just don't be sit on the sideline people. Be people that are engaged and willing to, who cares what people think, I'm going to go do that. We wanted them to be active. Okay, so obviously sports, youth group, serving. We took our kids on mission trips, and so there was all kinds of opportunities for them to keep being active.
Love that.
And the other one was obedient. We have seen in life that no matter where you are, we're always accountable to somebody. Ultimately, we're accountable to God. But I mean, all along the way, I had either president of a college when I was a Bible college, teacher. There was a president of Family Life. There was a senior pastor of a church. All along the way, there was somebody that I was reporting to. Even now with doing Family Right, I have a board of directors, right? And so learning to be able to be obedient and be under authority. You're going to have a boss. You're going to have a professor. You're going to have all kinds of people who have a right to expect things of you. And learning to just be obedient and just take it in stride and just, learn to serve, have that attitude of willing to do my part, willing to work. And so we wanted our kids to be men and women of faith, and we wanted them to be active, and we wanted them to be able to be obedient and just go with it.
So that was kind of like your it. If you thought about what is our parenting it? It's for our kids to be in relationship with Jesus, to be active, and to be obedient. If those 3 things are, happening, man, like this is where we want our kids to be.
But that just set the table.
Yep.
Because in every season, there are critical things that need to happen. Because remember, I've done a lot of work in the sociology of the family and nurturing children and all that. And 80% of who a child becomes is determined by age 5.
I remember reading that when Bridget and I think were Cole was 2 years old. We read that somewhere.
Yeah. And so you can't.
The suitcase is 80% full.
Yeah, of who they're going to become and how they're going to operate.
Yeah,
and so
that's a little intimidating as a new parent.
You only have 20% left in the years that they're going to be with you. Right. And so this is the time not to neglect parenting the kids when they're little, and they need a relationship both with mom and dad. Not just the kid's young, you look after him, honey. I'm at work and all this, and it's hard because in the early years when the kids start coming, you're trying to pay bills as a dad. You're trying to make sure that there's food on the table and the rent's paid, and etc. And it's not easy, but the kids need both mom and dad, and I call it carpet time. That dads need to be on the carpet rolling around with the kids when they're 2, 3, 4, doing stampede wrestling, and doing the horsey rides. And the kids used to jump off the couch onto my stomach, even up in 4 or 5, and just fun things to see if they could make me go, whoa, right? But we carpet time, where I have time to get down on my knees and hands and roll with my kids, carpet time. And this is before they're even in school. And the other thing critical, if you've ever read stories to kids, the minute, and I'm talking to dads here now, because mom have done it likely way more than us, but the minute you read a story to the kid, this little 4-minute story, the first thing they said is, "Read it again, Daddy." Yeah. Read it again. They say that. Yeah. And so then you read it again out of love, and then they say, "Daddy, read it again." And you're thinking, okay, I'll have to get through this a little quicker this time. So you start skipping pages. They go, "Daddy, you missed a page." Yep. And they turn you back and they make sure you read every page. But you see, they are milking the time with you. They love your attention. They love your focus. They love knowing that they're important. And so this kid needs to feel affirmation, which is verbal approval and support. They need to feel affection. They are touched and held. And the famous Virginia Satir, the sociologist, family sociologist that was so instrumental in early years of understanding family, she maintains that the average person needs 12 hugs a day to survive. 8 hugs for maintenance. Actually, to thrive, 12. 8 for maintenance, and anything less than that, you're going to start starving. Well, most of us have to look, do I get from my spouse even a hug a day, let alone 4 or whatever, right? And kids are, not being hugged. There'll be days that you don't even hug your kid. Well, she's saying that there's an insecurity that's developing because of the lack of touch, the lack of connection with the most important people. And so just the journey of dads being huggers. Well, that's one of the beautiful things I saw at Dad Camp this past weekend. When the dads are getting close to Jesus, kids are getting close to Jesus, dads and kids are talking and opening up about things they've never talked about. There's a richness and a closeness and a bond that is evidenced by dads and daughters, dads and sons hugging. It was so impactful to me. At the back, I took a picture of all these dads with their arms around their daughters or sons, and the kids hugging back. Yeah, because
these were high schoolers, by the way. These weren't like little 7, 8-year-olds.
This is 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and they're just eating up this contact with the dads. And so I think connection, touch, affirmation, affection, and even attention, like giving them your time, like how read it again, Daddy. I was with one of my American grandsons. He was 2, and I was reading him a book, and then my phone vibrated, which meant there's someone texting me or calling, and I went to pick up my phone, and he took my phone and he pushed my hand away. And I went to pick it up again, and he actually pushed my hand. He wasn't saying anything. He just knew that when the phone came up, he did not have me.
Your attention.
He did not have me. Attention means I'm in the moment. I'm with you. I'm not, oh, yeah, sure, son. Okay, whatever, yeah. And you're looking at something else. And so those 3 are critical: affection, affirmation, and attention. And that's all actually all the way through, but when they're younger, right? Yeah. Those are critical things.
Yeah. You mentioned one of the 3 things was obedience. It just brought back this saying in my head. Hadn't thought about it in a while, but something I wrote each of my kids at some point along at Dad Camp. But I wrote on there, and I didn't make this up. I read it in a book somewhere. But I remember the statement. It was, "But true satisfaction in life is directly proportionate to one's obedience to God." And that has been so true in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I have been most at peace, content in life when I've been closest in my walk with Jesus.
Sure. Yeah.
The true satisfaction in life has been directly proportionate
Right.
to my obedience to God. And I remember telling that to all of my kids, like, if there's one thing, in life to live by that mantra, you're gonna find most joy, most peace, most purpose when you're just surrendered to God.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my life statement, put God first, life goes best, actually started in 1991, where my kids were grade 8, grade 7, grade 2 in kindergarten. And I was thinking, well, how can I simplify what I really think is most important in life in a way that is still biblically accurate, but also simple enough to be remembered and grasped even to the younger kids. And no different than you, that satisfaction comes in surrender to the Lord. This became what I wanted to pass on to my kids, put God first, life goes best. But it's become my life statement. And that I help. It doesn't always go perfect with God first, but it always goes better with God in the picture. And so, that was one of the things I got to share at Dad Camp this last weekend. And you know what? You can't love a kid without time. If you're looking at how, what are the secrets of being a good dad over the years, it's just carving out time for them, just like you're carving out time for your spouse to keep dating, whether it's, I'm spending time coaching with them, but see, I still got to be a dad, not just a coach. So on the drive home, whether it was hockey or baseball I was coaching or whatever, I would say, hey, on the drive home, right, we're going to review the game maybe. I would ask them, I said, do you want me to be a coach or a dad right now? And they got to pick. I want you to be a dad right now. So then I wouldn't talk about what they need to improve. I wouldn't talk about what happened here in the third period when you did. We wouldn't go into reviewing the game, and I wouldn't try to. While you're remembering, let me remind you. What your coach would do, but they wanted me to be a dad, and so I'd highlight the things that. Nice job there, and just hang with them. Go for McDonald's on the drive home, and not be the coach.
Yeah,
and I had to take off that hat to be a good dad too. I enjoyed coaching, like I said, all my kids' sports, and because we're an active family, right? And remember, it's not just about sports, because we were active in ministry.
Right.
We took our kids to Kenya. I've been to Slovakia with my sons. I've been to Russia with my sons. I've been to my older 2 kids to Mexico on trips. My wife and I have been in I think 29 or 30 countries in ministry, and our kids. Matter of fact, about 6 years ago, in one March, there were 7 of us from the family in 7 different countries serving.
That's awesome.
Because we're active. We're still active in just finding ways to love the world, to understand the difference Jesus makes. And and so we're now doing 3 generational mission trips, where my wife and I will go with one of my kids and their family. And we already got one planned for Uganda next July already, and we've already done trips with 3 generations already, and we're going to continue to do that. Well, I'm not too senile yet, before it gets too far gone.
One word to someone like me who's about to be a grandpa.
Yeah.
What's something you would say to the grandparents, the grandpas out there?
Yeah, so I'm going to defer that for 30 seconds because I thought of something I wanted to give you advice.
Okay.
You have one son married. You have a daughter getting married.
Yes, sir.
And one who is maybe got some plans.
I think she knows she's found the one.
Okay.
So it's coming soon.
So for the dads who are in your space, this was a decision I made and what I said to all 4 of my kids when they got married. Took them alone privately, and I said this. Jody was the oldest, and I said, Jody, just so you know, now that you're married, I'm done giving you advice.
Yep.
You have everything it takes to make it in this world. You don't need me. So I'm not going to volunteer my advice on anything in your life until you ask. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but if you know they're doing something stupid, shouldn't you? No, I'm not going to say anything. Because if I've had 20 plus years of building in their life, golly, why am I so panicky? And it's really beautiful because when my kids ask me, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? First of all, it's an honor because it's not an expectation now. And I got to be careful that I don't back up the whole truck and unload a whole bunch of stuff because they'll never ask me again. But to respect the journey they're on with their new spouse and to back off as a dad. And that's my part in letting them leave and cleave to the new partner by me not always volunteering my advice and, well, you shouldn't be doing that. And, shut up, Dad. Shut up, Mom. And just let him go, let him grow. And I've told all 4 of my kids that, and they respect me for it. And now we have open discussions about most anything because they know that I'm not coming hard all the time, telling them they shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that and why'd you do that and all that. But I'm just there as an advocate and encourager. Mm-hmm. Now, in this season of empty nester, you understand that the second highest rate of divorce is between 25 and 30 years married. The first highest is 7-8 years, where you run into hard times, you decide, are we going to make it or not, and couples bail. That's the first highest spike of divorce. The second highest spike is when the kids start leaving home. And we often didn't work on the marriage, and so we kind of stayed together for the kids. And the kids are leaving, and they go, I don't know if I want to stay in this another 20, 25 years. And so that's the second highest spike of divorce. And I think in your stage, for you and Bridget, and for any of the men listening who are having kids starting to go to college and different things, that it's time to take a second look at reprioritizing your marriage and do a rebuild, maybe an overhaul, just like we do scheduled maintenance on a car. Well, maybe we haven't done that for a while in their marriage, and there needs to be a bit of a fine-tuning, or maybe a bit of a significant rebuild. And to do that, because number one, your adult kids as they get married need to see that mom and dad are still making it, giving them hope that when they go through hard times, mom and dad got through it, so we can too, versus mom and dad blew it up. So when we go through hard times, golly, maybe we should do like mom and dad and blow it up too. So I am giving a gift to my kids and my grandkids by keeping my marriage strong. When we, as just where you are, I prayed this prayer. So I'm going to challenge you to maybe pray it too. As you just found out recently that your son and his wife are expecting your first grandchild, their first child. At that point, I started to pray this prayer, that my grandkids would say this about me, that they would say, Grandpa, in my case, Jeepa, maybe you're Papa J, I think, but and Grandpa J. In any case, that they will say about you, which is my prayer, what they'd say about me. He's crazy. But does he love Nana? And does he love Jesus? That's all I want. That's all I want. He's crazy. That means they're going to have fun with me.
Yep.
He is nuts.
He's nuts.
That's right.
He loves me, and he loves Grandma, and
he loves Jesus.
Loves Jesus.
Yeah. So that's been my prayer.
Man, we started this convo with talking about being a great spouse first and foremost. We ended it with talking about being a great spouse first and foremost, and everything in between was a trough of wisdom from my brother and mentor and cousin, and so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So, guys, there's a lot there. Share this episode. This was strong. This is really strong, and just thankful for spaces like this and for men like this to pour into us. And so we're going to call it a wrap there for this month. Guys, we always say you have what it takes. So go do whatever it takes to be a great spouse first and foremost, to be the best dad that you can be. Pray for the ministry, pray for Dad Camp, pray for all the dads and students that are going to Dad Camp in this season. If you have never been or joined what we call the Dad Camp Army, and you're like, what's that? This is what drives the movement of Dad Camp, to see a world where every family has a great dad, to be in 25 countries and 25 locations around the United States, reaching 100,000 or more dads and kids each and every year. Why? Because when you reach a dad, you reach a family. When you get a dad fired up for Jesus, you get his whole family fired up for Jesus.
Yep.
That's why we do this, but we can't do that without what we call the Dad Camp Army. These are families that are saying yes to that vision. We want to get behind it. We want to pray for it. We want to invest in it. We want to give to it. And so if you're like, yeah, I'm not a part of that, and that's something that would fire me up and be a part of that story, then go to our website, click on Dad Camp Army, and just say, hey, I'm interested. I want to jump in, and we will follow up with you. So that is the greatest next step if you want to say yes to being more a part of what is happening in the Dad Camp world. So, guys, we love you. Thanks for joining. Again, share these last couple episodes with Dr. Dave Currie. They will help so much in terms of growing and leading our families better. And that's what this is all about. Doing family right, doingfamilyright.com. Go there and just take advantage of those resources. So thanks, guys. Take care. See you again next month on next edition of the Dad Nation podcast. Take care.